Alright, I'm gonna start from the top of my list. First one is movement on keyboard. It's pretty much similar to the demo's movement minus the extra stuff, like the friction and whatever. I know that in class we discussed not having in Player Blaster to accommodate AI and other stuff, but just for the sake of getting it working, it currently is sitting in Player Blaster and at some point will need to be moved out. For the next one, limited player zone, also very similar. Clamping, but obviously it's changed to match a different clamp. You can see you're only limited to move around to the bottom to what I thought was only, I think, 6 rows. So goes up and down all the way to the sides. Let's see, bullet and firing. um, for the bullet, I do have it saying when it leaves the screen, so I know when it does and if it's destroyed. I do have console messages. What I did not finish is having only one bullet at once and resetting. Um, so I do have multiple bullets. I shouldn't. Alright, so when it hits something and it's destroyed, it will tell me. And then it should say twice that I'd left the screen. So here it says that it's marked, and those are the times when it's leaving the screen and it is being destroyed. And then when it is being destroyed, it's sending a message saying it's being destroyed. Let's see. Mushrooms, obviously, were already created. For the health, it does only take 4 hits. Each hit does take away each one. Sprite matches all 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. For the grid right now, I do have it 30 by 30. I know that the top line and the bottom line are going to be reserved for text and something else. The top line I have open right now. This bottom one I currently can move in, but I will need to, I believe, be moved up one. For the mushrooms here, I did manage to do a type of random spawning, except it's really ugly. But just for the sake of seeing if I could do it and get some stuff also in the player area. Oh, and when the mushroom dies and the field needs to be cleared, I do have it printing a message that it is being cleared from the grid. So in this case, the mushroom was dead, destroyed, and then it was cleared from the grid. So let's see. This is the very ugly random spawning on the map. And then here is to clear the mushroom. I have the position of the mushroom. And because of how many pixels we're doing, this should be clearing that particular mushroom from the grid, the correct one. And collisions. Obviously, we did collide with the mushroom already. The player collision needs to be worked on for the mushroom because I attempted the mushroom's current origins at its center, which is also giving me a bit of a hard time with the grid because I had to add to it. Otherwise, it was spawning the mushroom like partially off the grid. But in this case, I was the mushroom's origins in the center and the players. So like every time I try to, they do register collision, except I tried to move it back some, and it is pushing it, or not pushing it. It is setting it back to a different position. It's not the correct collision we're looking for. Plus, I believe somebody in Piazza did mention uh, about, or was talking about the collision, and that we should be using the collision uh, to check the grid instead of depending on the collision because it's costly just to see if the spot is empty or not. But obviously, the player collision needs to be worked on. I believe that's it. So the things that are not working as properly are the collision between the mushroom and the player, and the bullet resetting, only having one on the screen at once. Everything else seems to be working appropriately. I did have one strange issue. If I have a mushroom that spawns in the top, it will only take one hit and then you can't do anything else to it. I still have to correct that error, wherever it may be, but everything else seems to be working correctly. The movement to me seemed like it matched the game. Let's see what else. But yeah, quite a bit of my code could definitely, I think, be cleaned up, and obviously we'll be changing this stuff. Some issues I had. Most of the issues were with trying to get the grid to work because I had some problems with the mushroom field and pointers because I'm a little rusty. But the mushroom field has a pointer to itself. It also has the array of pointers to mushrooms. The issue I was having was the mushroom communicating with the mushroom field, and that's what was tripping me up when I was talking to you about it. But it does have each mushroom does has a pointer back to the mushroom field, so it can tell it when it's it's dead. I did create a second constructor for the mushroom. So when I created the spawner in the mushroom field, I could just throw in a pointer to the field and the positions for the mushroom, and in this case, like the random positions. And it could set everything that it needs to. And for the mushroom field, I did create a separate function for spawning because I believe we talked about it in class about needing to do the spawning for different levels. And then here's the really ugly spawning for the mushrooms, which I don't remember if there's somebody mentioned a certain amount of mushrooms are supposed to be spawned and whatever, but currently this is just what I have for the random count of mushrooms. I believe that's it. And most of the trouble just came from the mushroom field getting it to work correctly.